All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to the channel. I am Ricky, aka Astronome, here to talk about some AoS again. Today I'm going to be doing a tournament recap with my cat Aku here. Tournament recap for the Goonhammer Open GT in Baltimore that happened this weekend, August 19th and 20th, 2023. I'm not going to bury the lead here. I won. I am super stoked. This is my first tournament win ever. I went 3-0 last year once with Stormcast at a one-day RTT, but I came in third due to the way the points came out because there were multiple 3-0s. So this is my first tournament win. I'm stoked. I never actually won a tournament in Fantasy. I have not won an AoS tournament. I'm super happy about this. So I've got the scoreboard up here. You can see this is me, Ossiarch Bone Reapers, Null Myriad. I played Mike from Tough Crowd round 4 and got that win to go 4-0. So he came in second. Super cool guy to play. I had seen his name on lots of tournaments before, but hadn't actually played him before. And third is good old Scooter with the piggies. I managed to dodge Scooter, which was great. I'll talk a little bit more about how the way pairings ended up as we get into the video. You can see here one slightly odd thing. We did only end up playing 4 games, so the turnout was small enough. As I said before in the last video, it was like 15 people. The turnout was small enough that the TO had us vote on whether we wanted to do the full 5 games as planned, or if we wanted to go down to 4 games, because 4 games was enough to have one undisputed 4-0 person who would clearly be the winner. So I actually voted, I was kind of wishy-washy, but I voted to go to 5 games, but it was about 2-1, I think, people voting to go to just 4. So we played 2 games Saturday, 2 games Sunday. It was very nice to only play 2 games Saturday because we got out to dinner at a reasonable time. My game 2 Saturday also went very long. We went like an hour over time. I think we were both going kind of slow. It was not like it was just his fault or just my fault or anything like that. At least as far as I was thinking. So yeah, it was kind of nice to only do 2 games. Got dinner and drinks with a couple people afterwards. Always a great time. Love hanging out with cool people who play Warhammer. So yeah, let's get into, I talked about my list in my first video. I talked about all the other lists in my second video. As I'll go through the games, you'll hear more about this, but I was very happy. Obviously I'm happy to win. I was extra happy to win because I felt like I did a lot of prep for this tournament in terms of going through the lists I might be facing and kind of figuring out how those games might go. And I had multiple games where my opponent, Jesus Christ, my opponent basically, their game plan was kind of what I assumed is kind of what I mapped out in my head, and I handled it in the way I planned, and it's so satisfying when that happens, when you make a plan, you're able to execute it, and it works out. Might have to lock this one out for further videos. He's a little ridiculous. So I'll get into my rounds. Round 1 was against Travis. Travis Roth with Cities of Sigmar. This is friend of a friend who I talked to on Discord before but hadn't met in person. So it was very nice to meet Travis in person. He's a cool guy. I feel like I don't know, I may have run into him at some point in Fantasy, way back in the day. He has a very fun army. He was playing Cities, but you can see it's all like Union Civil War era army themed, which is very cool. There were a couple people at this tournament who hadn't seen him, I think, like since back in the Fantasy days, who recognized this army from Fantasy, before he rebased it to round bases. So that was super cool. As I said in the list analysis video, he was using some protectors on loan from Nick to have a little more beef in the army. There isn't. So this basically went the way I thought, which is that his army, you can see like 4 units of handgunners. Handgunners are not good right now. So this is an army that's going, Jesus Christ. This is an army that's going to be good when the New Cities book comes out, and these handgunners all get to be Fusiliers, but doesn't do much right now in the old book. So Travis, this was his. I was wrong in my first video. This was actually his second AoS tournament. He had played in one in 2021, but this was kind of last hurrah with the old book before the new book comes out. And yeah, my assessment before the tournament was that this was probably one of the weakest, if not the weakest list, just because it doesn't work super well right now, and power creep and such. It's not a top book right now. So the game was pretty straightforward. I do have one more pick from a terrible pick from setup of this. You can see he's kind of got his gun line of handgunners back here, a steam tank. This is the Luminarch in the back right. I'm realizing now that my cursor is not showing, so let me go ahead and show the cursor. There we go. So the Luminarch is in the back. There was another steam tank off to the side here at the board edge, and yep, one steam tank over here. The board did extend to the left here a little further, but all the action was basically in this area. His steam tank here was the furthest thing on this flank. So essentially, he sent the protectors sort of over towards this objective, and I was able to pick them up in a couple turns with Mortec Guard and probably the Morghasts. Over on the left flank, so my command trait was Liege, on the Liege Cavallos. He was my general. I had the diversionary tactics trait, excuse me. I feel like an issue with OBR, an issue, because they're fucking amazing, is that all of the command traits are good. Armies like Slave to Darkness, I feel like the artifacts are very good, and like I want to take multiple artifacts, and you can do that if you take Warlord or a Command Entourage. My cat finally got out of the room, so let me close that door. Anyway, so like something where one of the strong points of the book is the artifact, you take multiple artifacts, but I'm always sad because I feel like OBR, like, all of their command traits are amazing. Like, I just wish I could take two. OBR doesn't need help. OBR is strong as hell. Not complaining. Anyway, the point of all of that was that the Liege Cavallos, the diversionary tactics, came up once, which is I had moved, they'd moved some Death Riders to here-ish and had the Liege Cavallos behind. I thought there was a point over here. Fine. Anyway, the steam tank tried to charge the Death Riders. I think it needed a 5 or 6, and it failed due to diversionary tactics. So the steam tank just sat there and then got charged by the Cavallos and the Death Riders, who do some mortal wounds on impact, and picked up the steam tank. And yeah, over on this side, I had there's a very funny thing over here with Death Riders. I had charged Death Riders into this steam tank on the right flank. He did a good job of picking up a few battle tactics. So, like, for example, he was not afraid to charge in the handgunners into combat to pick up Let into the Maelstrom for a turn, for a tactic. But yeah, over on this flank, I ended up in a situation where there was one Death Rider left alive in combat with the steam tank, which it turns out the steam tank is not good in combat if it doesn't get to charge and do like impact mortals. And because I retreat and charge, I had 2 turns in a row where the one surviving Death Rider retreated away from the steam tank and then ran back in to bash his head on the steam tank and do impact mortals. So that that amused me to no end. Yeah, overall it was a fairly straightforward game. He just didn't have the damage to pick up really anything in my army. So I did end up winning that one. I swear I should be able to see the scores here, but I can't. Anyway, I picked up that one 29-5, I believe. And in fact, I'm going to take a break just for a second here and go get my notebook so I can tell you the actual scores. All right, and we're back. All right, so I have my notebook now. I highly recommend taking notes on your games so you can remember what tactics you did, how the scores worked out. I know there's apps that do these now too. Apparently there's a Goonhammer app that's pretty good that I had never heard about that does this sort of thing, but sometimes it's nice to write with a real pen and paper. Um, so essentially, Travis got magic dominance turn one because he was out of range of me unbinding. He got led into the maelstrom turn two, and then I believe he tried bait and trap turn three, but failed it. So he must have failed one of the charges. And then that was basically the end of the game. He was pretty tabled at the end of turn three. So I ended up getting 29 to his 5. So I did remember that right. Right, so that was game one. Game two was against Khorne, which was the army, the list that I said in my list recap video that I was the most worried about. But I've had a decent amount of practice against Khorne, which was super useful, just knowing all the little tricks they can do with Blood Tithe. And since I had played Nick Jackson, who was playing Ogres here, I had played his Khorne when he had the 6 Skull Crushers. I was expecting, oh, he's going to put Bronze Flesh on the Skull Crushers and run them in, run them at me turn one and pin me in my deployment zone. And from the practice game with Nick that I got in a while ago, I knew that it's scary. It sounds really scary when this unit's 30 wounds on a 1-up save, but I knew they weren't killy, and I knew that I could actually probably burn through that pretty quickly, especially because with the Morghasts, they wouldn't be able to go to a 0-up with all out defense. So that was actually a big deal because 1-up, you have run 2, 3-up save, 3-up save is half as good as a 2-up save. So because of those things, I figured I would be able to get out once he pinned me. So he did take first. I gave him first turn because I outdropped him. I talked about this in the last video, but being a 2-drop was big this tournament. He was maybe 3. Anyway, so I gave him first. He did what I thought. He did put Bronze Flesh and the extra Ren prayers onto the Skull Crushers and ran them up. He did the hero phase, prayer for a move, and then ran them up in the movement phase. I paused because I shouldn't say he ran them up because running is a thing. He moved them up. I was a little surprised he didn't charge in, but it was probably the right choice. So he sat in a line 3 inches in front of my army with the six Skull Crushers, which you can cover a lot more ground now that coherency kicks in at 7 models instead of 6. So he stood in front of me. This was the scenario where you siphon meltwater, limited resources. So 6 objectives, and if you hold the same one 2 turns in a row, you can't score it again. So he got his 1-2 more. We were both being good about not starting the game holding both of the ones in our territory so we could pick them up later. So he got one of the ones in his territory and one of the others, I think. And didn't kill anything. I think the one surprise to me was that he didn't put out the Hexgorger Skulls turn 1, if I'm remembering correctly. So to me, I was thinking that the Skull Crushers, they're an anvil. They were never going to kill a ton, even with the Ren Prayer on them. So I was very surprised that he didn't use the, that prayer opportunity to just get out the Hexgorger Skulls and mess up my turn 1 casting, because that did end up being a very big deal, as I'll go into in a minute. So that surprised me a little bit. I thought maybe that was something he could have done a little better. My friend Gurn plays Khorne, does a very good job of just getting those invocations, so the Wrath Axe and the Hexgorger Skulls, into places where they just take up space and are annoying. So that also would have been a benefit of getting the skulls out, is he could have just blocked up part of the board, stopped me maybe from getting somewhere. Just in addition to the Skull Crushers, also have those things in the way somewhere. Trying to think. Oh, well, there's a spoiler. There you go. I won. I got a big belt. I'm super stoked. Hooray. I'm very happy. I was trying to pull up this tab. I should have drawn something. I don't have a good, let me pull up paint here. So essentially the terrain layout, what I'm trying to say here, the terrain layout was pretty similar, pretty standard every game. So we had essentially, let me see, let's go green for terrain. So basically every round we had two things kind of straddling the middle. We had something small there, and then we had things in the corner. So generally, these were the wildwoods, something like that. These were garrisonable. These were impassable, was just kind of generally how it went. Um, so let's go to red for units. So I put, let's see, put like the bone type nexus over here, and he was over here. So basically, he put skull crushers in a line there, turn one, to stop me from getting out. So what I was thinking with the skulls is, um, in case I got out of there, it may have been useful to, maybe just take up space, there, or maybe over here, or maybe even in the middle. But he chose not to do it. Whatever. Didn't end up, maybe would have affected something. But anyway, just thoughts. So my turn one, I believe I got Hoarfrost off on the Mortek guard. So I was basically sitting here, Mortek guard, Morghasts. I had like the Mortis over here, and I had Death Riders ready to go to the flanks. This is gonna get real messy. I might just erase these now. And actually, this is a good time to talk. So a little deployment trick, a little positioning trick, that I had planned on using going into this. I'd seen people in coach chat, or maybe it was even in person at like the last tournaments. Anyway, somebody was talking about like having the line of Death Riders to screen and having the Immortus Guard right behind them. And since the Immortus Guard have 2-inch reach, like being able to fight over, the Death Riders, like with the Immortus Guard. And, talking about when people have like the 6 block of the Immortus. Just have a screen in front of them, but then if the screen gets charged, you can still fight with all of your attacks from the Immortus Guard. So the slight twist on that, that I was planning on doing, was getting, setting up the Mortek Guard in two ranks, basically, and having the Morghast behind them, such that if the Mortek Guard get charged, you have to be within a half an inch of the Mortek Guard. Basically, if you charge them, having it set up such that you have to be within 3 inches of the Morghasts standing behind them, because they turn off receiving commands within 3 inches. But having it positioned such that even something with a 2-inch range, even if they got base to base with the Mortek Guard, still wouldn't be able to attack the Morghast. So the Mortek Guard could absorb, the impact of the charge, and then the Morghasts would have a little bit of room to pile in forward and get their attacks after the charging unit attacked. So basically, you have to have the Morghast like 2¼ inches behind the front of the Mortek. So I'd done that here. I don't know if that, I don't know. I don't know why he didn't charge in. He probably was just thinking if he charged in, I would do a bunch of damage back, and he didn't want that to happen because he wanted the anvil to last longer. Totally legit. So anyway, my turn one, I charged in the Mortek, I charged in the Morghasts, I charged in the Immortus Guard into the Crushers, the Skull Crushers. I had my Death Riders go up both flanks. So basically, he had Reapers over here. Let me go back to red for him. So he had the Reavers there. He had Reavers over here. He had Scarbrand, and he had his blob of warriors. His terrain was here, and he had a bunch of characters, blah blah blah, and Korgraf. Ugly. Korgraf. All right. So my turn one, I sent most of the things into the Skull Crushers here to try and clear them. The Death Riders went up, charged, and cleared both units of the Reavers super quick. So suddenly he had nothing on the flanks at all. So I was able to contest points out on the flanks. And I killed all but one of the Skull Crushers in my turn one. So, you know, his. Can I make this bigger? Whatever. Anyway, his pin was basically he left the guy over on this flank. So had he gotten, had I not gotten the double, that would have been slightly annoying. But I got the double, so I got the double into two, and I actually was able to kill the last Crusher with a Curse of Years from Archon. Favorite spell ever. It's great. So because I was able to clear that pin in the magic phase, then I was able to move everything up. So I believe this was the turn I did Surround and Destroy. So since the rider units were both already on the flanks, I was just able to move them over to the edges and get Surround and Destroy for my turn two tactic. I forget what my turn one tactic was. It may have been. Oh, it was Trample. Right. Yes, I got Trample the Defiant turn one because even though I killed all of the Reavers on this flank, I piled in such that I was in combat with Korgorath. I would be within 3 of Korgorath. So yeah, even though I killed the Reavers, I was still in combat, and then I retreated out to get the Surround and Destroy. So I did that. In the middle, I made what was probably a questionable choice. It ended up being okay, but I charged the Morghasts basically to here. This red circle's not where he actually had a hero. It was like back here. So I charged the Morghasts in thinking that if I just clipped the edge of the warriors, they probably wouldn't clear the Morghasts. And I could maybe cheeky just get his general, the priest up here. Because I was like, I just want less priests on the board. I hate the invocations. I hate all the prayers that you can't do anything about. I just wanted to kill him. I ended up only getting 3 wounds here through, which may have ended up better because then he couldn't immediately get reprisal back on there. And I don't remember if the Morghast survived the turn. They may have just immediately died. But over on this flank, I got the Immortus Guard, like, this is horrible. I got the Immortus Guard up to here. The whatever the new priest is called for Khorne was actually over there. So basically I got the Immortus Guard charging in and clipped both the priest with 1 and Korgorath, and I kept Skarbrand out of 3 inches, so he couldn't engage and smoke me that turn. So I got my tactic. That's great. He only got 3 points turn 1. Yes, he got 3 points turn 1 because he just burned a battle tactic because didn't think he could do one. So he did Magic Mayhem turn 1. So that was my turn 2. I think I said in my previous video, I almost never take the double as Null Myriad or as OBR because you don't want to risk the double back because you want to be able to heal in between. But this was a case that I felt like the upside was big enough that I needed to take it, because if I didn't take it, I'm still in my deployment zone and he gets to move, the warriors up here. He gets to move Skarbrand up and maybe probably charge Skarbrand into me, which is not happy fun times. And then probably this whole 2/3 of the board on the right side, I'm feeling way, way worse about positioning wise. So that's why I took the double. In his turn, this is just going to get more and more crowded on this diagram if I keep drawing. So his turn, he got Scarbrand into the Immortus Guard and just smoked him. Not surprising. He, right, Morghast did survive my turn because in his turn he did Blood for the Altar. So he finished off the Morghast here and did that. So he got 5 points that turn. But the warriors were still stuck. So that was nice for me. Morghrath was dead at this point. Right. The Immortus Guard killed Korgorath, but they left the priest on 1 wound, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. Um, so the priest was alive, the Immortus Guard were dead at this point, and I think that's about all that happened that turn. He may have this turn. This might have been the turn he used summon points to replace this dead Reaver unit over here with 10 Bloodletters. I think that was this turn. So, he took this point back with Bloodletters. So then we go into turn 3. At this point, I'm up 10-8. Turn 3 was rough for me. I believe, so I did let into the Maelstrom, which I got, but I believe I didn't pick up any points from objectives this turn because I had held 3 the previous turn and the previous 2 turns, right? So I had held 3 the previous 2 turns, so then those were turned off for me for the rest of the game. So the ones I had the option to hold still were the one down here, the one up here, and I think I had actually gotten this one with the Death Riders, if I'm remembering right. I think it was this. I think it was the top right one that I couldn't hold anymore. But then he was in a he ends up in a similar place after turn 3. So I'll talk about that in a second. So my turn 3, I charge Liege Cavalos and the. Sorry, one more thing. I'm looking at my notes. I'm remembering more things. Funny thing happened in his turn 2, I believe, which is that he tried to chant Blood Sacrifice with the guy with 1 wound left to do wounds to Scarbrand and get a Blood Tithe. And instead, he rolled a 1 on his chant, killed himself with the 1 mortal wound, and because of that, he still got the 1 Blood Tithe that he wanted. So his priest died. That's not how he wanted to get the Blood Tithe, but he did still get the Blood Tithe, which I believe that was the crucial Blood Tithe to be able to summon the not Bloodthirster, so much blood. Bloodletters. There we go. The 10 Bloodletters. So I think that was the tithe he needed to summon the Bloodletters, which is why he was like, all right, stinks that the guy died, but he still got what he wanted out of it. So anyway, so these Death Riders came back from the flank into Scarbrand. My Liege Cavalos went into Scarbrand there as well. Right, this was the turn I think things almost went haywire. So my Mortek Guard had moved up to here, and Archon was here. And let's see, these Death Riders came back. So these Death Riders charged into the Bloodletters. Like I said, these 2 things charged Scarbrand. I charged Archon into the Warrior block. These Morghasts were dead at this point. So I charged Archon in, and I then failed the 4-inch charge on the Mortek Guard. So at this point, I'm like, oh shit, Archon's in here by himself against all the Blood Warriors, and I don't think I got the character in, but I was a little bit worried that Archon was gonna get smoked there. The rest of that turn, the Immortus Guard and the Cavalos Riders did a bunch of mortals to Scarbrand on the charge. So when I got to the combat phase, Scarbrand was on 4 wounds. I was finest out on the Liege Cavalos. I had given him his own extra attack command in the hero phase. I don't think I got Power Nadirite weapons off. I got very little casting done this game other than getting that Skull Crusher. That was probably the most impactful thing in that game that I did with Magic. So I got my juiced up Liege Cavalos goes in. I rolled something silly like 8 hits, on his like 5 attacks, 6 attacks. So on 6 attacks, I rolled 8 hits. So maybe I did have Empower Net right on him. Wounded 8 times. So I need to get 2 through to kill Scarbrand. So he made 7 of his 8 4-up saves. I believe he was on a 4-up at that point. And so he lives. He lives on 2 wounds. And I was so sad. I was devastated because he does his 8 mortal wound auto thing back on Liege Cavalos. Um, Liege Cavalos evaporates. I did not make 2 or 3, whatever, 6-up ward saves that I needed to make. Uh, the saving grace was that his normal attacks only killed, I believe, 3 of the 5 Cavalos. And then I believe it wasn't even I think a rider attack did 1 wound, and then I think a horse attack actually finished off Scarbrand. So I lost to the Liege Cavalos out of the deal, which on average, I shouldn't have lost him on average, but dice are dice. It all worked out in the end, and so I got Scarbrand. So at this point, and I killed a bunch of the bloodletters as well over here. Like I think I killed like might have taken another turn, but I killed a bunch of these. The riders didn't die back. I killed like 5 or 6 something bloodletters. At this point, I have killed Scarbrand. I've killed the Skull Crushers. I've gotten a priest in Korgorath. I did a bunch to these bloodletters. I may have already done a wound or 2 on a couple of the. There's a Slaughter Priest and the Banner Bearer over here, the Icon Bearer. So at this point, Archon lived through this turn fairly well. I believe he had 2 wounds after this turn because he took some from the Warriors and healed up. Not the Warriors couldn't really pile in and get everybody into Archon because some of them were closer model to model over here. So Archon lived through that turn fine. I did only get 2 points though. So his turn 3. He did no cowards among us, so everybody just has to be within 8 inches of an enemy. So he got that pretty easily. He almost, I'm not going to remember exactly when Archon died, I don't think, but he was super, super close to killing Archon this turn, the bottom of 3, with, he summoned the Wrath Axe. Right, so I think what happened is Archon would have died, but the Wrath Axe on the double tap rolled a 1, and so it didn't double tap to get like the last like 1 wound that was an Archon or whatever it was. He like survived with 1 wound at the end of the turn because the Wrath Axe didn't double tap him at the beginning. So he did manage to get 5 points that turn. I forget which exactly objectives he took. It's probably was one of the ones that I couldn't get anymore. I don't know if he ever got down here. But yeah, he got his 5 points. Turn 4, he got the double. So he got led into the maelstrom there. Right, turn 4 was when he timed out of getting his objectives. So he had gotten objectives twice in a row. And so he got led into the maelstrom that turn, but he didn't get any objectives because, like I said, I had cleaned up this flank. His warriors were stuck here. He was basically stuck in combat and couldn't get out to try and get any objectives that weren't already turned off for him. So he only got 2 points that turn. And then, it's pretty close at this point. In my turn, I think in the double he killed Archon. So Archon's dead. In my turn 5, I charged in the Mortek Guard at some point. Right, sorry. I got the turn 4 to 5 double back. So in my turn 4, I did Intimidate the Invaders because I was all out of my deployment, of my territory. So I got Intimidate the Invaders, and I was able to pick up objectives that I could control. So I got 5 points in my turn 4 to his 2. And I got the Mortek Guard into the Warriors just to pin them because I'm like, the Warrior block is the main thing he has left, and that's just pinned in the middle, not near any objectives. If I can just get the Mortek Guard in and just not die and just hold them there for the rest of the game, I was like, I basically have this game cleaned up. So in the 4 to 5 double, basically I cleaned up these guys over here. Um, I think he may have only had the Warriors left on bottom of 5 when he went. So he got 1 point bottom of 5 for holding something, I guess. He may have summoned. Oh, I remember what it was. Yes. So he was trying to get right. So I got bait and trap turn 5 because I had actually been moving my Mortise and Bone Shaper and Soul Mason up, and I was able to retreat with 2 things. I gave them retreat and charge, but they still count as retreating. And then for my 2 separate things to charge in, I got both Mortisans into the warrior block. And it was so, my grand strat, sorry, his grand strat is Slaughter of Sorcery. So it was a very slight risk to throw both in, but because of the way that the warriors were strung out, and because you have to pile in closest model to closest model, he was only going to get like 1 or 2 warriors on the 2. So I think I like Mystic shielded one and had Finest Hour in the other. So they were both on like 3-up saves. I think the Soul Mason had 2 wounds on it already from something. So I charged both of them in. I figured one would live through the game. If they didn't, I would be very sad. Spoiler alert, they both ended up living. So that was fine. His turn 5, what he summoned was Blood Crushers. So he summoned some Blood Crushers basically back here just to try and make a 9-inch charge and kill both of my wizards. So it was slightly sweaty there for a second, but he failed the charge. So he did not get his grand strat. He didn't get the wizards. And yeah, somehow he probably had some objective somewhere. He got 1 point turn 5, so I ended up winning 25-16, which I was so happy about because going in, I thought this was my hardest matchup, and I had had enough practice. I felt like the practice I had had against Khorne actually made a big difference. He did surprise me 1 or 2 things. Not so much, not like a surprise gotcha thing. Just I forgot about Brass Meteor, so I think he ended up killing Archon with Brass Meteor. Splattered him with the Brass Meteor from the sky from Khorne, a little present. So that I didn't consider. Archon probably would have died to something else at some point, but he finished him off with the Meteor, which is cool. Meteor is great. Yeah, so that is that game. I guess I should erase all of this. Maybe I should just, let's see, can I just like delete everything? No. Let's do one of these. There we go. All right, perfect. Never mind. We're actually going to back up all of them. We can't. Never mind. All right, I'll just draw the terrain again. Maybe I'll just drag this all off. Yoink. 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 All right, here we go. Like I said, the terrain setup was generally very similar every game. So this will do. Right, so that was day one. That was day one. 2 games. Got to go drink a beer. Good times. So I was 2-0. The other 2-0s going into day 2 were Scooter with the pigs, Mike with Kotet with slaves, the 2 Varangard and Nurgle Knights, and Seraphon with the Incarnate. So I was like, all right, I know the 3 possibilities. I had steam coming out of my ears all night and on the drive there back in the morning of just planning what to do against these 3 armies. It was nice to narrow it down. Like I only had to think about a couple. I felt like I had a good chance of beating Seraphon, obviously because I'm Null Myriad. This was the whole reason I took Null Myriad, was to not get magicked off the board by some frogs. So I figured I had a good chance against that. I figured the other 2 matchups would be a lot dicier, and it would rely a lot on positioning, and hopefully my -3 to charge aura would come in strong to make some pigs or some knights or some Vanguard miss a charge. So I was very happy to see in the morning I got matched for round 3 into the Seraphon. So that was, I should pull up names. Right. So I should mention names. Chris was round 2. Chris Werter from Tough Crowd was the Khorne player I played. Real nice guy, good guy. Um, one of the like 3 or 4 or 5 people at this tournament who had the Tough Crowd jerseys on. So it was good to play against a couple of them. So yep, Chris, thanks for the game. Travis also, thanks for the game. I'll see you around in person, whatever, it's fine. And yeah, so Christopher Gosselin, I don't know, is he in a club? Warphammer. Okay. His club was Warphammer, I guess. So yeah, Christopher running the Seraphon with the Incarnate. Again, all the people I played were good. He was a good guy. From what I remember him saying, I think he's a little newer to Seraphon. So obviously not new to AoS, but newer to playing the army he was playing. So still getting some stuff straight in his head about all of that. So round 3, we ended up skipping. So the round we dropped was the round that was supposed to be the one where you disrupt commands. It's not limited resources, something about communication, whatever. Lines of communication. There we go. So we skipped that round. I'm up in the air as to whether that was good or bad for me, because obviously OBR is very command point heavy and disrupting the commands can be a little rough. But on the other hand, I have so many command points that if I have to spend 2 sometimes, like it probably would have been fine. And it probably would have messed up the other person more if I was going second at any point. So that meant this was Fountains of Frost. So, Fountains of Frost is like 3 objectives across your territory. And in this one, our territories only go up 11 inches. So instead of 9 inches from the middle, so being 18 apart, we start 22 apart, which I was actually kind of thinking that would be better for me if we played, would be better for me if I played one of the very charge-centric combat armies on this, just to start a little further away. But I didn't. I played Seraphon on it. So like I said, he had the Incarnate. He did not have the Realm Shaper engine. This surprised me. He apparently has not been able to find a model for the Realm Shaper engine. So that was a big win for me because I didn't have to worry about being close to terrain and taking a bunch of mortal wounds. So that was actually huge in this game because that's not magic. I don't ignore that. No Myriad doesn't help with that. I had put I think I put the Bone Tithe Nexus like here. So I kind of set up the same way as the time before. Train was maybe a little further over here, but whatever. But again, I had Mortek Guard in a big blob. I had Morghasts back here. I had some Death Riders kind of zoning out this. I had some Death Riders zoning out this. My Liege Cavalos was like here. The Immortus Guard were here. Archon, I believe, started out here. Just for this was within 9 inches. No, the Soul Mason was here. Sorry, Soul Mason was there, so I had 9 inches to that. And then I believe the Bone Shaper was like over here. These circles aren't going to mean anything to you, but suffice to say, I had everything in the 9-inch bubble for Null Myriad, as you might expect. For him, he started with the Incarnate. Like here, he had the Slan, Proc, 5 Source Guard, 5 Source Guard, Ripperdactyl Chief, I think, was over here. 10 Skinks must have been over here. And he didn't start with Ripperdactyls, he summoned those. So that was basically, I'm probably forgetting one unit. Oh, right. So he had a Starseer and he had an Astrolith Bearer somewhere in here. So I had the choice to go first or second. I gave him first. I was basically thinking I figured he would run, figured he would set the Incarnate Wild. I was gonna maybe try and stop Rupture or something, but I ended up just prioritizing. I ended up being too far away because I kind of prioritized just if the Incarnate did get in, not having it trap too many units, because when it's wild, you can't retreat away from the Incarnate. You have to stay in combat. So I kind of prioritized that over Dispelling. Turn one, I figured he was going to have a bunch of pluses, and like the odds of actually Dispelling weren't worth the risk of being closer. So he did turn one, set the Incarnate Wild. He summoned Malevolent Maelstrom, and it ended up over here. So he was maybe even a little closer than that. It was like up here. Maelstrom was like up here. So he ruptured himself. He cast some other things. He didn't do any damage to me because I'm null myriad and I don't care. Whatever, it didn't matter what he got off. He got a bunch of summoning points, as they do, and great, cool story. He ran the Incarnate. I was very sad because he rolled the natural 6 to run. So he got, how close did he get? Because the 12-inch aura was coming from here. I think he was able to stay just outside the 12-inch aura and get like a decent charged, whatever it was, whatever he needed, he got it exactly. He made the 6-inch natural run, and then he got right into here. He charged in such that he was touching the Maelstrom that he could eat and then pile in to like the Mortek Guard, the Death Riders. So I ended up with the Incarnate in my face right here, turn one, which I thought it was far enough back and with the charge aura that it probably wouldn't happen, and then I could engage it up here in the middle. So it was kind of a pain in the ass, but it ended up being okay because let me just erase some of these. So the Incarnate ended up there. In the combat phase, he targeted. So this was trapping Mortek Guard, the Riders, and the Leech Cavalis were the things that could not retreat because they were all within 3. So he attacked the Riders, and he killed 2 of them, and I just took out the 2 guys that were closest to the Incarnate and was like, sweet, thanks. Now I can move my Riders in my turn. So that was great. He put all his attacks into there, killed 2 guys. This is like best case scenario for me. So at that point, I moved the Leech Cavalis up. I piled in the Mortek Guard to be something more like this. Obviously not that fat. I only have 20 guys, but did that. And if I'm remembering correctly, immediately knocked it back down to level 2. And this was my entire game plan. I was like, I want to get the Mortek Guard into combat with the Incarnate, and we can just grind on each other, and eventually all my little skeleton boys are going to rip it down. I'm like, every combat, I'm probably going to take 1 level off of it, and he can only feed it spells on his turn, because I'm not sending the Nightmare Predator next to it, and I'm not sending Archon to die to it. So yeah, between the Liege Cavalos attacks and all the Mortek Guard, I took it back down to level 2. So things were going swimmingly. I did Intimidate, right? So I did Intimidate in this one because it's the small deployment zone that's only 11 up. So I moved a bunch of stuff out in my turn. So yeah, my turn I did Intimidate, and I should also say he didn't move a ton of this stuff. He kind of sent the Incarnate up and then stayed back and just held his points. So he only got 4 points the first turn because he didn't take any of mine. Right, so my turn 1, I'm sitting here, I'm like, all right, these guys are freed up. And actually being freed up with those riders was huge because then I could do Intimidate. I don't think I would have gotten enough units out without that. So these guys moved up just kind of up to here, along with one of the Mortisons and the Immortus Guard. Kind of got up to here just to keep, I wanted to stay in the bubble with the riders. So the riders stay in the bubble. Gonna be a mess again. The Immortus move up. It must have been the Bone Shaper moved up there. So the Bone Shaper goes up there to keep them in the bubble. I know that the Incarnate can't pile away from the Mortek Guard. So even though it felt kind of scary to have the Bone Shaper right next to the Incarnate, I was like, even if he takes the double, even if he gets the double turn, I don't think he's gonna free up the Incarnate to go eat this stuff. Um, so these riders, right? And so the other part of my plan in this game, I was like, I want the Mortek Guard occupying the Incarnate, and I don't think anything else in his army can kill my army. I'm immune to magic. Um, so one of the issues, one of the reasons he couldn't kill me, apparently Raptidon Chargers are real good to summon. He didn't have any models for Raptidon Chargers. So the models he had to summon, as far as I know, were Skinks and Ripperdactyls. I never saw anything else. Um, and he didn't have the Realm Shaper engine. So he was definitely a little bit limited by the models he had in ways that helped me a lot. So I took my little gang of Bash Bros up to here. So at that point I had like Archon, Death Riders, Morghasts like up here. So, they got away from the Incarnate, blah, blah, blah. They're not there anymore. Great. And I was like, all right, these guys are going up here. They're going to just go slan hunting and kill some shit. So my turn, I got 4 points as well because I didn't get close enough to take this objective. I didn't make it up within 6 of that. We were 4-4 after turn 1. Once again, I won the priority roll, and once again, I'm going against my own advice, and I said, "Screw it, I'm going in." So I took the 1-2 double, and so I did Let into the Maelstrom. These guys all got in over here into like the Slan and the Source Guard and stuff. His position was a little better than like I drew it here, but I got these 3 units charging into stuff. I feel like he did have something else over here. Whatever. Got stuff charging in. The rest of the game was the stuff over here slowly chewing through things. I got the slam down to 1 or 2 wounds on probably turn 3, so I didn't really get to him this turn. I had to chew through like some Source Guard and stuff first, and the Ripperdactyl Chief. So I chewed through that. Turn 3, I got the slam down to 1 or 2 wounds. I was very sad I didn't pop him. I was close. Obviously, I was close if he was on 1 or 2. And then the Slan was able to teleport all the way back to this corner. This was, by the way, this piece of Impassable was like this big. So the Slan was back in this corner. He did a cute play where he summoned 10 Skinks to take this point from me. So that turn for me, I got 5 because I did take this point that turn. So I got 5, and then he got 4 turn 2 because he took this point back. I think these Death Riders may have gotten. I think they went up here and killed the Skinks, which is why he was down to 1 point. So he needed to take this to get an extra point for the turn to get to 4. So he did that. Let me check my notes again. I kept everything in the Null Myriad bubble. There was a point, so probably 1 turn later, I finally, it was kind of cute. I was proud of this. I took this unit of Death Riders from the Mortisan bubble here, all the way over here to get into Archon's bubble. Oop, let me make this blue. Not that it matters much. So I took the Death Riders, got the charge up here into the Source Guard and the Priest. Starseer, Archon came up and charged in. The Morghasts were there at this point, and then there were more riders. So basically, 2 units of riders, the Morghasts and Archon, were all in combat in Archon's bubble, just fighting characters that were left, and Croak. So Croak, the Starseer, the Source Guard that were left, and the Astrolith Bearer. And so I cleaned all that up eventually. So I did get Croak, I think, I got Croak top of 4. So I had 2 units of Riders in with him, not quite at full strength, but they did enough to pop Croak. I think I did like 14. No, I think I did 11 or 12 wounds to Croak, and then he rolled enough to pop. So that was obviously great. He did a lot of miscasting and failing spells this game. So there were multiple turns where either Croak or the Slann miscast, and there was a turn where the Slann just straight up failed like the first. I think the Slann rolled a 3 on his first 2 spells and then miscast the third spell. So he was crushing the dispels when I was trying to cast things, and I wasn't trying to cast my full suite of spells every turn. I was just trying to prioritize a couple important things to not give him as many summoning points. Um, so he was crushing the dispels, but actually failing pretty hard to cast, just rolling badly. And I dispelled a couple things. He was rolling badly. He miscast a couple times. So he only ended up summoning. He did summon 3 Ripperdactyls that like came down here at some point. I wanted to mention this was a rule that I messed up. Well, he messed it up. I should have caught him. I should have known to call him out for it and say, oh, nope, actually that doesn't work. So the highlights down here on the side of the board at the end of the game. Like I said, I've been grinding down the Incarnate. I made, sorry. So there was the rule that I didn't catch, and I screwed up one big thing. The big thing I screwed up was he had summoned the Suffocating Gravetide over here. And he was kind of trying to decide whether, oh, I might leave it here to block off the riders and shit from coming up. Something, I don't know. Moral of the story is I could have dispelled it at the start of my hero phase, and I didn't. And I forgot. I realized later in the phase when he moved it over here to feed it to the Incarnate. So at that point, I was like, oh, I could have, I could have dispelled it. At that point, you can't take it back. So I was just like, whoops, rip, get shit on. At that point, the Incarnate was level 1, so it went back up to 2, or it back down to 1. Then it was like his turn. It was his turn 3. Yes, his turn 3. He summoned the Maelstrom and sent it down for the Incarnate to eat, but it was only on level 1, so he needed a 5 on the dice because he was only +1 to eat it and go back up a level, and instead he rolled a 3 or a 4, and so the Incarnate died. And that was a point. I'm usually not very effusive and emotional during tournaments, but I definitely clapped my hands once and like celebrated that the Incarnate killed itself. Tried to eat a spell and died, rip. So at that point, the Mortek guard could go over here and take this point back. I could just do shit at that point. He summoned another unit of skinks that Archon cleaned up later. The rule that I didn't catch was he had flown the 3 summon Ripperdactyls down to here. So I had Bone. I think I switched. The Soul Mason was up here at this point. There was 1 surviving Immortus Guard due to some bodyguarding. Right, because I had the Leech Cavalos in combat with the Incarnate, and I was bodyguarding onto the Immortus Guard. So he never actually killed the, he never killed the Leech Cavalos. That's the thing. All right, so the Incarnate was stuck there and spent like 3 rounds of combat trying to kill the Leech Cavalos and never got him, which is great, obviously. Nexus was big in that because the Bone Type Nexus, I was hitting my 4-ups to give -1 to hit to the Incarnate. So instead of being on 2s and 2s at level 3, he was at 4. He was at 3s and 3s, I think, instead of 2s and 2s, or like 4s and 3s, or whatever. Anyway, he was worse off because I kept hitting the -1 to hit, and as he wasn't at level 3. I think it's the wild gives wounding on 2s. Whatever. Anyway, the moral story: he couldn't kill the Leech Cavalos. Rip. And he blew up. And the thing I messed up was he rolled a 5 to charge with the Ripperdactyls, and he was in the -3 charge aura of the Leech Cavalos. So he was like, oh, well, with the pile-ins, with a 3-inch pile-in, I'll be able to get in range to attack. So like, I only rolled a 2 to charge because it 5 -3. So he was like, I only rolled a 2 to charge, but with pile in, I'll be able to get in. And he was barely able to clip like 3 things. And I was like, no, let's be careful. I was like, no, you're not, this guy can't get down here or whatever. So he ended up clipping, so he could only attack like 1 into the Immortus Guard, 1 into the Liege, and like 1 into something. And you may have realized the problem with all of this is that you have to get within a half an inch of a model to have a successful charge. So you can't be within 3 inches when you move, and then if you roll a 2 to charge, you obviously just don't succeed the charge at all. So I messed that up. He got in and killed the last Immortus Guard, but otherwise it didn't do anything, and the Leech Cavalis just popped him back, and like it didn't matter. But in my head, I was just like, oh, I messed that up when I realized later I need to be better about just catching things like that. So that was game 3. That ended up being that was actually my closest game. So it ended up 25-20 for me. Because despite not being able to take damage from magic, he played very well, and he played very well to get tactics. So, I think I said this in my list video. Um, Even though I'm not taking damage from the spells, he's still getting the points to summon with. So he had some good plays. The one time he teleported the Slan to get out, and then summoned the Skinks. So he was playing very well around getting the objectives and still achieving battle tactics, even though he couldn't really actually kill my army. So I just wanted to give him props for that. Just wanted to give him props for that. It was just a good example of how even in cases, where you're not going to necessarily kill the opponent's army, you can still play the objective game and do very well. And I think that's something that I had to get used to when I first started playing OS, because coming from fantasy was all about just killing the opponent's army. And I guess, I played Malifaux, which was an objective thing in between, which may have helped, but it's still, just something to keep in mind. Like, you're not necessarily trying to kill the opponent's army, you're trying to score points. So 25-20, that was a very close game. It was very, very good. So game 5 was against Mike, who ended up coming in second. Again, second guy from Tough Crowd that I played. So like I said, good to play those guys. Mike is also, this year, he was the coach for the AoS Worlds team for the US. So good player, goes to tournaments and stuff on a regular basis. I have seen his name at the top of the lists, top of the placings many a time, but never gotten to play him. So he was playing a very scary 2x6 Khorne, Fell Spear, Varangard, the 10 Nurgle Knights with the banner, 2 Cabal, and 2 Sorcerers. So I figured that he was going to, when he was a 1-drop. So this is what worried me, was he was a 1-drop, I'm a 2-drop, so I knew that he would have choice to give me first or second. So this was on, what's it called? Spring the Trap. So it was Spring the Trap. So it was the one where, our deployment zones are like here, basically. Our territories do go all the way up to the middle, and you can remove a unit. You can remove D3 units at the start of the game and bring them in from a board edge. Neither of us picked up any of our units because we were like, we're set up the way we want. Why would we pick up our units? This game, I was right. So this game, I was both proud of the way I played, and also, Mike said after the game, he was like, I fucked up really bad turn 1, which was true. I kind of, and he was saying after the game, he was like, when you're on the top table, game 5, you need a couple things to go your way to win. You need some dice to go your way to win. You need your opponent to mess up to win, because you're both 2 good players on the top table at the end of the tournament. So like, you need a couple things to go your way to win that game. So some things did go my way this game. So I'm just going to pull up the picture right off the bat. So this is the game state at the end of turn 1. So basically what happened, I talked about this formation with the Mortec and the scoot over here. So I talked about this formation with the Mortec and the Morghasts. So I placed my other tab. Yeah, so I placed my bone type nexus here. My plan here was I figured I kind of screened with Death Riders over here. I kept everything tight on this flank. Um, he had set up, you'll see in a second. Um, anyway, my plan was set up the Mortek guard kind of in this choke point, send riders over here to take this point. They'll probably die eventually, and then just leave this flank and don't care about it. And so basically try and hold these 2 points. So what ended up happening is he gave me turn 1. So like I said, I set up this formation where the Morghast were going to be turning off commands for anything that came in. And also in my turn, I got the my endless spell up, and I set this up here. I didn't send it to do any wounds to anything. I set this up just so that I could reduce the frontage on anything that would be charging into the Morghast, just to be in the way. So I basically set it up so that you would only get in, if he charged in 1 unit, he could maybe wrap around this thing and get a few more models in, but it was going to be annoying. Basically, he was going to lose models. He was going to lose attacks almost no matter what he did. He could have gone in, so because the Nurgle Knights have the base-to-base lance attacks, so basically the old Gallivette thing, he maybe could have kept the Vanguard off and charged solely the Nurgle Knights in and kind of gotten everything in. But then there wouldn't have been anything to do with the Vanguard. There wouldn't have been frontage there to get them in at all. The other thing he could have done is he could have gone in with the Vanguard and just looking at this, seeing, you're seeing how big the Vanguard bases are, you're seeing how much space is here. I think he only would have gotten in 3 Vanguard here. And I think he only would have had room for 2 knights here and then probably gotten 3 in a second rank. And then on the left flank, what you're seeing here, to divert from that for a second, I realized that with 13 inches, so the +3 OBR command, +10 for the riders, I realized I could get to a spot where I could maybe get a long cheeky charge off on these Vanguard. So I threw Mystic Shield on these Cavallos. I threw them into a spot, I went 13 up such that I was still tagging the point on the left here to pick that up for 1-2 more my first turn. If I didn't make the charge, I did hit the charge. I think I needed to re-roll it, but I needed a 9 on the dice. I hit a 10 on the re-roll. So I got into these Vanguard that he had on this flank, turn 1. So yeah, so my turn 1, I had moved and set up this position. I'd gotten these guys into these Vanguard because I said, it's better than getting charged by Fell Spear Vanguard is charging them and not getting charged, because Ren 3 sucks. And also charging gives them 2s to wound and Ren 3 instead of 3s to wound, Ren 2. So I got the Death Riders in. I did a couple wounds to, this is going to be important. I did a couple wounds that he allocated to this model, and I lost 1 rider back. So as you can see, I was like, sweet, I charged in, I did a wound, I lost 1 guy, whatever, great. This must have not quite been the state at bottom of 1. This may have been right. This was in the middle of turn 1. So this was in the middle of turn 1. At this point, I thought he was going to charge in here, despite the frontage issues that I had set up. I kind of thought he was going to charge in. He did not charge in. This is what after the game he said this was the big mistake that he made. I think I agree. He was talking about the math where these Vanguard should pick up all of the Mortek Guard with the double fight. It wasn't clear to me if he was talking about the math for basically all 6 Vanguard. But I think, I'm not going to do the math in my head right now. I think the way this frontage is set up, I'm pretty sure even if he had gone in with the Vanguard and the Knights, I go to my unrendable 4-up save, and I don't think he clears them turn one. I could be wrong on this, but um, you know, they do get, they're 4 attacks on the charge. Let's do math real quick. They're each 4 attacks on the charge. Say 3 Varangar get in. That's 12 guys. They're 12 attacks rather. They are not getting a lot of tech because of the Morghasts. I don't think I got the Nexus off on them turn one. So they're hitting on threes, so there's 8 hits. They're winning on twos, so probably, let's call it 7. So that goes down to, we'll just say 3 go through, maybe 4 go through. That's only 8 damage. I probably ward 1 or 2 of those. So let's say the double fight does, he probably kills 12 more tech there. The knights, it would have been close. He might have picked them all up, but it's doubtful because the knights are actually hitting on 4s. He probably, I was saying he probably has 15 attacks there. We'll give him 8 hits. He only wounds on 3s, so 5. Say 2 get through, or 2 damage. 4 would have been very close. Would have mattered. The dice would have mattered. And at that point, he's in. He did a lot of work. Probably worth it. But he didn't. So what he did, he moved up turn 1 and he sat there and he looked at me. And I think he was hoping for the double. Well, obviously he's hoping for the double. The double probably would have been better if he had just gone in. So I don't know if he was just thinking he would dispel that and have better coverage, be able to get more models in. Anyway, so he didn't charge in turn 1 with all these guys sitting here. The thing that happened up in the top left, so my friend Travis, coming back from ATC, he was like, Ricky, if I had to give you one piece of advice, it would be don't be as friendly in games. Just, don't be chummy, don't chat as much, just play your game. So this was in my head as this was happening. Essentially what happened here was he piled in to kind of surround the Death Riders, and he killed, I think again, he only killed like 1. But I did enough wounds back to kill this guy who was in the middle of the formation. So he piled in. There's 2 guys on this side, 2 guys up, or 3 guys up here, and then this guy's in the middle connecting them. And I killed it. I did enough wounds to kill that model. So at the end of the turn, we get a battle shock, and I was looking at him like, yeah, man, you're not coherent. Sorry. So he's like, oh, I would just clean this up a little bit and, be coherent. And I said, well, if I wasn't on the top table in a game, I probably would have, if this was a friendly game, I would have been like, sure, whatever. Doesn't really matter. But on the top table, I was like, what do you mean you're going to clean it up? What are you cleaning? What movement are you cleaning it up with? And he was kind of like, yeah, I guess right. And because I was like, look, you had the wins allocated to this guy. He was in the middle with the way you piled in. These 2 models are definitely more than an inch apart. Like they're not coherent. I'm sorry. Like top table game, end of the game, last game of the tournament, top table. Like I'm not just gonna like get this to you. So I felt a little dickish, but like it was the right call, and that forced him to pop double fight on the Vanguard because he had the option to either lose 2 guys and go down to 3 Vanguard in this unit, or to pop the double fight so that they could pile in more and be coherent and fix the coherency issue. So he did that instead. So he popped the double fight here, which was a big win for me because then I don't have to worry about the double fight anymore. He still didn't clear the damn unit. So the unit is still there. I forget how many he killed, but he didn't clear the unit at that point still. So he did not get the double. I got the next turn. So, in my turn, I healed, I brought back a Caballos up here, I believe, because I think there may have been like 2 models left and they were on exact wounds. So I was able to bring one back with Archon. So the damn Death Riders just kept not dying to these Vanguard. Down here, I was able to, in my hero phase, he had done, he did one of the just like, and I didn't even notice this. So he had done just like a quick, where's my hands? He had just done like, the quick tape measure over the table, not really being super accurate about it. Measurement. and thought he was like 13 away from my guy with Merciless Blizzard with the Knights. And this was another thing he was like, man, I just got a little sloppy. I didn't check. I thought it was out. But I go to measure it and I'm like, oh, they're like 11 and 11 and a half inches from this guy with Merciless Blizzard. So I cast it. I rolled, I think on my roll, I had one primal and I needed a 4-up to get it off. So I rolled it and I got a second 6, so he actually couldn't even attempt to unbind it. I rolled 19 mortal wounds on the Nurgle Knights. So I picked up 4 Nurgle Knights after his ward saves. I picked up 4 Nurgle Knights right off the bat, turn 2 with Merciless Blizzard, which was just brutal. I got the -1 to hit off from the Nexus onto the Vanguard that turn. And I think that was going to be up on them for the rest of the game. So yeah, at this point I got a couple lucky rolls. I got the 10 up to get in here with the reroll. I'd gotten the Merciless Blizzard off and killed 4 Knights, which was good. Yeah, so then I charged in. Oh, what did this guy do? Oh, I believe in my turn. Right, so in my turn too, he dispelled this endless spell. It could have popped over back to here, but it didn't have room to get to the wizards, the sorcerers. I had done, at this point, I think I did a couple wounds to his guy with Chaotic Conduit, with probably Curse of Years, I believe, if I'm remembering right. These buffs were from turn 1, but I think I empowered Nadirite weapons onto the Morghasts here. I think I gave them +1 attack with the Cavalos, because I was like, the guys with, I didn't get, that's what it was. I didn't get Hoarfrost off on them this turn. So turn 1, there we go. That was part of why I didn't charge in. I did have Ren 3 on the Mortec, so even if he charges in, whatever attacks first and kills something, I may have killed a couple, like I maybe would have killed a couple Vanguard back because he wouldn't have been able to all out defense. He would have been on 6s to save. I may have killed 1 or 2. So that probably factored into his calculus there. But anyway, I have 8 minutes to wrap this up. So let's get through the rest of this game pretty quickly. I wish I had left more time for this one. This is the most exciting one. It's the end of the tournament. It's top table. So what happened here was the Mortec charged into the Vanguard. The Morghasts charged up into the Nurgle Knights. Let's see, the Immortus Guard. Oh, and he had brought down Corvus Cabal. So the Liege Cavalos went over, away off screen here. He had brought Cabal down here to take this point back. So the Liege Cavalos went into them and cleaned them up turn 2. The Immortus Guard and the Soul Mason moved over here to prep to do the tactic where they contest something outside of my territory. So they moved to set up that. I got led into the Maelstrom this turn because I set up the charge on the Cavalos to either be 3 inches into the Vanguard or 3 inches into the Cabal. I think he redeployed the Cabal, so it needed like a 5, but I still got into the Cabal. So the Liege Cavalos made that charge and cleaned up. And down here, these 2 units, the Morghasts and the Mortec, are both battle line. So them being in got me the tactic easily. In that turn, let's see, I killed 4 Knights with Blizzard. I believe I killed 2 more with the Morghasts. And then I may have picked up, I don't think I picked up a Vanguard yet here, but I may have gotten one. So then, his turn 2. He double fights with these Vanguard. My Mortec are on an unrendable 4-up, and miraculously survive with 1 model. So I am left with 1 Mortec. It's basically this guy hanging out here within 6 inches of the Bone Shaper because I took off the ones. I took off such that the last guy left was within 6 inches to heal up later. he had retreated out the 4 Nurgle Knights that were left and rallied 1 back. Um, I believe in his turn 2, he finally cleaned up. Right. So in my turn 2, he had he had killed all but 1 rider up here who had 1 wound left. So these motherfuckers up here have held up this Vanguard unit for 2 turns at this point. His turn 2, he does the last wound, he kills him. Great, he's out. But because of what happens down here, he had left the Morghast. The Morghast were not in combat with the Vanguard; they were slightly out because he had positioned that way. And he wasn't piling in closer. Obviously, he didn't want to. So after 2, he had gotten, let's see, right. So we both got 5 turn 1. I got 5 turn 2. He only got 1 point because he failed Magical Mayhem. Forget his thinking there. He had done Lust for Power turn 1. Yeah, so the reason these sorcerers are here is because he did not get Chaotic Conduit off on himself, so he had to take this point from me to be able to roll on the Eye of the Gods table and get his tactic. So we did that turn 1. And turn 2, he failed Magical Mayhem, so he got 1 point because he still held. I think he held this. I think he still held this turn 2. I could be. Oh, right, because he killed me down to 1 model. So he held this turn. Turn 2. He had brought down on the other flank. He brought his other Corvus Cabal down here. I had my Death Riders here, so he couldn't actually bring them down to take the point back, but he was hoping to make a charge here. He failed his 9-inch charge. I think if he had made it, I think the Riders just kill enough that he doesn't get it anyway. So I don't think there was a win there for him. So I have 1 Mortek Guard left. He had double fought here. His double fight was gone here, but he was free up here finally. So if he gets the 2/3 double, there's play for him. But he rolled a 5, and I had the real sweaty roll. I got the 6 to not get doubled. So I got to take the turn. So he never got the double. He was really hoping for the double that turn. So I got to take my turn 3. I healed back up 9 Mortek, so I'm back to 10 here. I flew Archon over to the other side of the Nexus. This turn, I got Drain Vitality off on the Vanguard. Excuse me. I got Drain Vitality off on the Vanguard. So they're at -1 to save, -1 to hit from that. I also got -1 to hit off on them from the Nexus. So these 5 Vanguard that are left over here are sad times at -1 save, -2 to hit. I do the tactic for the Immortus and the Soul Mason contesting the objective off to the left here. So basically what I do here, I get the Liege Cavallos charging into the Vanguard. So once again, they are held up by something that is going to be hard for them to kill. I Finest Houred him, and I also had the Immortus Guard for bodyguarding. So if he somehow did 15 wounds to me that got through to the bodyguard, I would have lost my tactic, but he did like 3 wounds to an Immortus Guard through the bodyguard and like 2 to the Cavallos. So he was stuck once again with the Cavallos up there. I charge in. I didn't charge. No, I was still in combat with the 1 guy that was left. So I summoned 9 back because I hit the Artisan's Key trigger to get 3 more. So got 10 Mortek in there. I charged in the Morghasts over here. Once again, I gave them like +1 attack. Pause just a moment. All right, sorry about that quick pause. I'm not an expert on my recording software yet, and my wife came in just for a second. Right, so to wrap this up, top of 3, my turn. I fly Archon over so he can charge the backside of the Vanguard here. I had resummoned this and popped a couple wounds on things, but I hadn't killed the sorcerer yet. I hadn't killed either sorcerer yet. And the Morghast and the Mortek Guard were in with these Vanguard again. I think I had also, yeah, the knights were tagged in with the Morghasts as well. So the Morghast swung and came up big and did 12 wounds to kill 3 of the Varangard. And between the Mortec and Archon, I picked up a whole Varangard unit that turn. So at that point, his Varangard are dead. He's pinned up here with the Liege Cavalos. His shit on the right flank is dead, so I just have a full unit of, I basically have a full unit of Death Riders over on my right flank. So he's pretty done at this point. So at that point, he was like, "Hey, we can just talk it out at this point. Like, you've got this. Let's see if I can get any more points in this game. You're gonna max out." So I'm sitting here like, "Great, awesome, love it." I had the dice rolls come up with for me that I needed. Mainly that the priority was huge. The one Mortec living was huge, but that was big, but it wasn't as big as the prio roll. So yeah, just getting him not getting the double let me clean up the Varangard unit. It let me pin this Varangard unit again. So he was just not going to get primary objectives at all for the rest of the game. Basically, he was thinking of if he could maybe get March of Ruin out to here. If he could like sneak past the Morghasts, and measuring it out, his furthest model with 10 inches of movement wasn't going to get wholly within my territory. Wouldn't get wholly within my territory that turn while still being like 3 inches away, because you have to end up further than 3 to retreat. So he would have got, there was some tactic he could have done. Anyway, he got 2 more points. It ended up 28 max points to me to 8 him. I was so freaking jazzed. I won my first tournament. I beat a couple good players from Tough Crowd and Warphammer. I had a great game just every round. I did not mean, by the way, to exclude Travis from that list of good players. All of my games were good. I played good people. And yeah, this game, I felt I had a good game plan. I felt I executed it pretty well. It would have been a lot hairier, I think, had Mike not made like 1 or 2 mistakes. But it happens, you get end of day 2 brain. Things happen. I've made incredibly stupid mistakes, like forgetting to bring down reserve units before turn 3 is over and just having them be dead. So it happens. But yeah, it was a super fun tournament. Great games. I was very happy with the way I played. I was happy that my prep felt like it paid off. And yeah, I've been talking about this for way too long. Thank you for listening. I may split this up into a couple of videos. So if this is part 2, thank you for tuning in to both the parts. And yeah, I will see you during the next video. I may try and get a video out next week. I may try and get a friend on to chat with about Warhammer. We will see. But until then, hope you have good games and take it easy, friends.